Given that it's around Cinco de Mayo time, this should be coming out a little after, I figured why not take a look at the Hill family's foray into Mexico? You know, the one that ended with 3 fugitives sneaking across the border. Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our Patreon and merch store, and yeah, let's just do this thing. 3 Days of the Kahndo. The title is a reference to 3 Days of the Condor, which is an adaptation of the book 6 Days of the Condor by James Grady. And no, the episode has nothing to do with the movie or the book outside inspiring the title. It starts off with Hank getting his wrench out of the dishwasher. We only see him grab and drying off the one tool, though there are quite a few in the dishwasher, and Hank doesn't seem like the kind of guy to let his tools possibly rust. So I'm guessing that he grabs all of them and we just don't see it. What we do see is Min doing what she loves, and that's bragging to Peggy, this particular time about her family's upcoming vacation to Mexico. More specifically, a mitad condo, which Min isn't sure the meaning of, and neither does Peggy.
You know, that's one of those words that doesn't translate easily.
Extra special luxury?
It conveys the idea of simple but relatively clean living.
It means half. We'll find that out later, but I don't blame Peggy for not knowing that because she doesn't speak Spanish.
I drank the water.
En español.
Tú eres puerca.
Muy bueno.
Also, fun fact, matad, pronounced different but spelled the same, is also the name of the cooking instrument used for making injera, a traditional Ethiopian flatbread. Anywho, Min's gloating is rather premature because Khan's brother backs out, meaning that Khan would have to pay for the whole thing himself.
Stupid brother! Now he back out on the trip and we stuck with full charge for Kahndo rent. We can't afford that. We just bought a CD jukebox!
Now, we know Khan has 2 brothers, one who lives in Los Angeles and is the father of Tid Powell.
I swear to your father, I keep you out of trouble. And now you get mixed up with Bobby Hill. What is it with you beautiful Asian girls and that stupid redneck boy?
And who I'm guessing is also the father of Fawn Sawan.
Hey, hillbillies! My delinquent nephew coming to town. Don't buy him beer. I know rednecks like to buy beer for kids. He'll ask. He like to party. Don't buy him beer. Hey, Hank Hill, my nephew missing. If you see 17-year-old and tricked out Hot Rod, call the police.
I always do.
Then there's another one who runs a ranch that Tid Powell ends up getting sent to.
I'm the last uncle you got. You'll screw up here. We ship you back to Grandma in Laos.
Also, like Khan, he was voiced by Toby Huss.
The strongest man in the world.
However, Khan gets the idea that maybe his neighbors could be of some use in his current predicament.
Maybe crack our neighbor some use after all. Howdy, neighbor!
The Hills discuss it over dinner. They're eating the classic stereotypical white people tacos. The writers tend to use that little chestnut in episodes that feature Mexico, like in Lupe's Revenge.
Why don't you want me to go to Mexico? Is it the exchange rate?
No, it's just that the Spanish they speak there is, fluent.
And I am not fluent?
A lot of people do eat them this way, though personally I prefer something closer to the traditional taco, except they don't typically put Cabot cheese on traditional Mexican tacos, yet.
Boy, that cheese.
Now, apparently Hank and Peggy used to go to Mexico quite a bit, supposedly every time the peso was devalued, which would have been quite a bit. But they hadn't been since Bobby was breastfeeding, and though this may have been the first time we see any of the Hills in Mexico, they do end up visiting several times throughout the series.
I don't mean to sound racist, but this is by far the best selection of beans I have ever seen.
Mike Chicken is the star of the show.
Sweet mother of pearl.
And Hank isn't totally on board with going this time, with his reasoning being pretty sound.
But there's also the cons, the biggest one being, well, Khan.
Peggy claims that introducing Bobby to other cultures would be good for him. Plus, it would allow her the opportunity to replace a papier-mâché pear that she had bought while she was an exchange student in Mexico. Luann wants to go so that she can get Mexican makeup, and Bobby puts the cherry on top by adding that it's the home of Monsignor Martinez.
Vaya con Dios.
Is this show pretty accurate?
Vaya con Dios.
All these added together are apparently enough, and Hank finally agrees.
Well, okay. If you all want to go, I guess it's Buenos Dias, Mexico.
Oh, Hank, I'm sorry, but you just said, good God's Mexico.
Again, no shade on Peggy here, she doesn't speak Spanish.
That is completely untrue. And if that goes down on the Mexican records, my teaching career is tostada. I am very fluent. Listen to me roll my R's. I rest my case.
Shut up, you little weasel.
So, the Hills head off to Mexico. Peggy drives, I'm guessing because they're taking her car, and she jockeys for position with Con all the way to the border, where Con uses the breakdown lane to cut in line, then causes enough of a fuss to get the Hills pulled over and searched. It's also interesting that Peggy is driving, yet the official tells Hank to pull over.
Sir, pull your vehicle over to the inspection area, please.
He was joking. Tell him you were joking, Con.
Anywho, while the Hills are being detained and searched by Border Patrol, Con and the clan make it to the Kahndo, which is where Con learns what Todd actually means, and he ain't too happy about it.
This Kahndo plenty Todd, but only one floor. What are you trying to pull? Old bait and switch?
Mitad. Mitad means half. Just downstairs, not upstairs.
Yeah, that means the two families would be sharing a single story of the Kahndo, and there doesn't look like there's that much room for just the Soup and Newson phones, let alone the Hills. Hell, there's only one bathroom, and that just ain't gonna work. Con decides to take it upon himself to gain access to the upstairs, and by gain access, I mean he uses a car key to jimmy the lock and break in. Though this happens right about when the Hills arrive, and they call the top floor, which Con is totally on board with giving them, considering they're illegally using the space.
Here's key. Lock, little sticky. You gotta rake it like this. No tomorrow.
This is a car key.
Yeah, you win new car. This big game show. Just rake it, stupid.
The next day, Hank tries fixing the door with WD-40. Bobby and Connie decide it's best if they just go off on their own, and I'm not exactly sure where in Mexico they are, but I'm willing to bet it's probably not a part where you'd want unsupervised American children running around. I'm not saying that all of Mexico is dangerous, but that there's a kidnapping waiting to happen, though Peggy doesn't seem too worried about it, and then again, she fully bought their whole playing volleyball excuse.
All right, just make sure to apply plenty of sunscreen, honey. We are much closer to the sun here than in Texas.
So the ladies head off, Peggy in search of her papier-mâché pear, Luann finding her special makeup, which is supposed to be illegal because it's tested on animals, but the list of American companies that don't test on animals is significantly shorter than the list of companies that do. In fact, every person watching this uses at least one product per day that was tested on animals. Also, the FDA doesn't even test or approve cosmetics, so that wouldn't be an issue. But she finds what she wants. It's a brand that translates to the milk of the sun.
Oh my God! La leche de sol! The illegal beauty secret of the stars.
Which we actually see again a few seasons later in The Trouble with Gribbles.
Wow, Mrs. Gribble! You look terrible. Oh, here. Try this new moisturizing cream. I use it on days when I don't look my best. It's not even opened.
Bobby and Connie head off in search of fireworks. I find it odd that they went for something that, depending on the time of year, they could probably buy rather easily back in Texas. Hell, that was probably back when they were still selling them for like 3 for $1, as in you get 3 for the price of 1.
For the last time, John Redcorn, I am not a narc. Now, I've got a stack of 20s and a tarp for the back of my truck. Let's make this happen.
Be careful. Some of these are illegal. In Mexico.
They find a boom boom shop and their eyes immediately fall on La Bamba. Yes, I know those are two different things, but whatever, it's La Bamba.
Oh my gosh, La Bamba. Those can blow your whole arm off.
And this appears to be a display, hence why it's so goddamn big. But also, if you read the sign in front of it, it basically says fireworks come here. So it's a promotional display. Granted, I'm not sure why the shopkeeper would sell a promotional piece like that, but hey, he got his money, so good on him. Anywho, they buy La Bamba and head off into Mexico in search of something worth blowing up with such a grande explosive. Peggy finally finds a vendor who sells pears. Well, he sells a lot of what appears to be a bunch of Day of the Dead stuff.
I'm running
this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time.
Not that Day of the Dead, but okay.
Oh, right. The crazy dead people Christmas who people celebrate.
What matters is that he does have a frog that comes with a pair, and beggars can't be choosers, so Peggy makes do. Though the vendor does make an interesting request, asking Peggy to deliver a package for him across the border because he doesn't trust the mail.
I wonder, what is in it?
I'll tell you what's in there. Cocaine, black tar, PCP, you name it. I see 2020 special all about this. You're a mule, Peggy Hill.
This, by the way, could be a nod to an episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show where the main character is asked to deliver a package to Mexico rather than from Mexico. And like Peggy, she thought that the package could possibly contain something illegal.
Hand her this package and say, Gustavo says to think of him when you light what's inside.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
She'll know. Gracias, Mary. Have a pleasant week. Goodbye.
Well, I certainly don't think that,
And as we find out later, spoiler alert, both she and Peggy were wrong about the contents of the package. Hank, meanwhile, has found his way to a local bar that he apparently got a coupon for, which is the same coupon that Con has, hence why he ends up there as well, distracting Hank away from his favorite Mexican export, while also unknowingly agreeing with him about fruit being served with beer.
Ugh.
Hey, this is a beer, not a fruit salad.
Why can't you find your own bar?
I have same coupon book as you.
They're joined by a roving mariachi band. Now, I'm not sure if those are a real thing in Mexico. It's possibly more often seen in a touristy area, but I would totally be down for having random mariachi bands just roaming around. I'm not against that, but they would have to include somebody like this guy. Con ends up getting rid of them by beating them at their own game, singing "That's What I Like About You" right back at them. Bobby and Connie finally see a monument worth of exploding, and it's the mascot statue outside of an Italian restaurant called Che Pasta. And okay, that's good. I gotta give it to whoever came up with that one. That's a good one. However, seeing as it's just a display and not an actual explosive device, it doesn't end up going off, leading the kids to believe that it might be a dud, but they cling to the hopefulness of youth like a sticker burr on a sock, waiting for the creation of the world's most spicy amitabala.
I think it's a dud. Yeah. Let's give it 15 more minutes.
Yeah, I know that was terrible. I wonder if Connie will add attempted international terrorist to her Harvard resume. It's a fair question. I mean, we already know that she has the rhythm of stab and a stab down pat.
Is it stab and stab?
No, it's stab and a stab.
And we can't really pin it on Bobby because he's a future special needs student.
I'm just gonna come clean here. I just labeled those kids special needs so they wouldn't take the test.
Of course you did.
I'm really stuck here. I don't have anyone to take the blame. Emily's too young to take the fall, and everybody thinks Dale Gribble's a special needs kid.
Anywho, in the aftermath of Con driving the mariachi band out of the bar using his monotone rendition of "She Blinded Me with Science," he and Hank have a nice moment and kinda bond a little, even having a beer together.
Pretty good job, Con. I've never heard that song with only one note before.
Yeah, it's all about rhythm.
Bartender, 2 cervezas, por favor.
Afterwards, as Hank is trying to open the condo door with a car key, Dale randomly pops up. Yeah, he followed Hank to Mexico, just like he followed Hank to Port Aransas.
Oh, Delia was right. Hank, you are impossible.
Which one of you is Delia?
She is.
I could commit you like that.
I also find it interesting that Dale didn't drive the Bugabago the 9 hours down to Mexico. Yes, Hank specifies the drive time. He drove Nancy's car. We see it later.
But this isn't about the glory. I'm just happy to be making the world safer in as many markets as I can.
And I'm guessing they did this in order to have a trunk for Con to hide in. But we'll get to that. What matters is that, yay, Dale's here, and he's staying over at the Hank Hill house. However, he also gets seen by the property manager and or owner of the rentals, whose name, by the way, is Jacinto, and he's voiced by Paul Rodriguez, while Dale was waiting in line to use a children's pool slide. And he openly admits to staying in the upstairs which remember isn't supposed to be occupied.
Damn turistas, you try to rip me off? It'll be the last time you...
Somebody missed his siesta.
Bobby and Connie continue to hide behind a dumpster, waiting for their display explosive to go boom, while understanding what it's like to be Marvin Martian.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Then, that night, they're all back at the condo. Peggy is on edge due to not knowing what's in the box.
What's in the box?
Luann is happy with her purchase of supposedly illegal cosmetics.
They had to kill 10 turtles to fill one little jar. Neat.
And Bobby is afraid of getting caught, partially from the Mexican authorities, partially from his own parents. However, they're all thrown into a frenzy when Jacinto shows up with some backup. At which point, Peggy tries to flush the box down the toilet. Yeah, that's not gonna work. And funnily enough, the package ends up containing, ta-da, a papier-mâché pear. You know, the exact type that the vendor said he didn't sell. Dale sneaks out the bathroom window on the second floor, and Bobby helps Luann get rid of her makeup, or makeups if you will, though he doesn't seem too happy about it.
This tastes like turtles.
What in the heck is going on?
I was never here.
Hank calls for everyone to come out to the main room, and they do so, though they look guilty as sin and must have been a sight to behold. And let's not forget Dale, who takes a bit of a tumble in the background.
We have nothing to hide.
They end up in court and are found guilty. No surprise there. I mean, they are guilty. And at first they're ordered to pay 8,000 pesos, but when Dale can't keep his mouth shut, it goes to 10,000 pesos. And the court ends up confiscating the guy's identification. So now Hank, Con, and Dale are stuck in Mexico until they can pay the money they owe, which, going by the exchange rate of the time, would have been around $1,200 American, something that none of the three can apparently cover.
My money not fluid. Take weeks to raise funds. You pay, I owe you.
I can't cover it. If I could just get back to Arlen, I could have him garnish my wages.
This actually does make sense, but also doesn't make sense. Let me explain. So, Con is broke. We know this. He and Min live paycheck to paycheck, mostly due to living higher than their means as a way of keeping up with the Joneses.
We live from paycheck to paycheck, and now we broker than a stone.
In fact, remember, they only invited the Hills along because they couldn't afford it on their own due to recently buying a new jukebox. And don't worry, his sing-along should be at the end of the video. And they had to take out a second mortgage on their house in order to buy Scrubbies.
Scrubbies Car Wash. Swing on by for cruise night.
I just leverage house to raise capital and then find turnkey owner with a little problem. 6 martinis later, I own Scrubbies.
Then there's Dale, and yeah, Dale's broke. His business can barely be called a business.
Joke's on him. I don't even make a living wage.
Dale contributes next to nothing to the household monetarily.
I support us.
But I contribute.
You pay the cable bill.
Yeah, no, that's not true because we know Dale doesn't pay for cable, he steals it from Hank.
But my dad has a channel block on Fox. We'll have to watch it at your place.
No, my dad steals cable from your dad, so we don't get it either.
And for the most part, Dale lives off of the allowance that he gets from Nancy. Oh, I do not see her raising it anytime soon.
So I finally got up the guts to ask Nancy for raising my allowance. It did not go well.
So, okay, yeah, it does make sense that Con and Dale don't have the money. And even if Hank didn't have that amount in his bank account, he says that he could get his pay garnished in order to pay for it. But here's my issue. Cards on the table, I've never been to Mexico, but I'm willing to bet damn good money that they have these things called phones. And these phones can be used to call people in the United States. And in the United States is a man named Buck Strickland, who owns a phone and would probably pay to get his golden goose out of Mexico.
A business thrives on customer relations and back-breaking hard work. And that's the guy who gives it to you. Hank is the golden goose.
Just call Buck and have him Western Union the money. Hell, considering how many times that Hank has bailed Buck out, it's quite possible that Buck might drive down there himself. And let's say that Hank doesn't want to deal with Buck. Okay, cool. I bet either Bill or Boomhauer had the money to cover it. Hell, if nothing else, I'm sure they could pool their money and come up with it together. You really think Bill has anything better to do than drive 9 hours to Mexico in order to save Hank?
What a coincidence, Hank. I have to go to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport to pick up my uncle who's coming in for Thanksgiving.
What time's his flight?
What time's your flight?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
So why don't they just make a couple of phone calls and get the money? I mean, I know the answer.
Because proper communication would get in the way of the story I'm trying to tell.
Right. But it just does not make a whole lot of sense. Anywho, rather than do any of that, first Hank and Dale decide to just drive out of Mexico on their own and just leave Con to fend for himself, but then they change their minds. And after the families head off in their own vehicles, Dale and Hank drive Nancy's car back with Con safe in the trunk.
I don't think it's such a good idea.
Yeah, well, here's another idea. We go on without you.
Okay, all right, I get in.
Problem is, Dale's driving, and Dale ain't exactly known for his bravery, unless it comes to dealing with turtles.
Oh, come on, where you going? I'm not leaving without my kiss. I can wait. I can destroy you.
But law enforcement ain't made of turtles, and as we should all expect, even though things were going just fine, Dale freaks out and decides to make a run for it, though props to him for at least popping the trunk before he ran off, which allowed Con to also get out. And Hank quickly joins them as they just totally abandon Nancy's car, vanity plate and all, at the border crossing.
Where are you gentlemen from?
Arlen, Texas.
I've been to Arlen. Nice town.
Run!
So now all three are stuck in Mexico, no ID, no vehicle, meeting up in an alley to try and figure out what to do. Hank's first idea is to call Ross Perot, who ran for president in 1992, and gave out a toll-free phone number as part of his pre-election campaign that Hank would rather apparently call than Buck or Bill or Boomhauer. Con is immediately on board with just sneaking across the border. It is, after all, the most cross-border in the world, and it ain't exactly difficult. But Hank is against the idea because to him the idea of crossing the border illegally runs contrary to his American spirit.
America is my country and I love her. I wouldn't enter her in any way that's unnatural.
Dale is totally on board with Team Illegal Crossing, so Hank agrees to go along with their idea and sneak back across the border, coming across a few mopeds that might help them in their trek. And so, after giving the men a few items, see, I told you they were broke.
That watch belonged to my grandfather.
That was my only pair of button-fly jeans.
Hank, Con, and Dale set out on their grand odyssey back home. It also should be added that the mopeds didn't even belong to those two guys, and our adventurers simply gave up a family heirloom and a pair of pants for a set of stolen mopeds. Also, they were close enough to the border to run to the alley where they met back at, and the mopeds came from right down the street. So how far were they going out of the way to cross the border out in the desert? It doesn't really matter because Dale has to be Dale and cause Hank to wreck.
Somebody look at me!
Did you see?
Ow! Did you see? Did you see?
Being down to one stolen moped, the three decide to try and ride it together, but their combined weight is just too much. I mean, it goes, but it goes slower than just walking, so they decide to hell with this and they're just gonna walk. So they walk for a while, joining up with another group of border crossers, and soon enough they come to the Rio Grande River. Dale wades across, keeping his cigarettes above his head, yeah, I get that, and Con claims to Hank that he can't swim, which, yeah, the river is shallow enough to wade across. He doesn't need to swim, but whatever. Hank carries him part of the way across before Con admits that he actually broke into the upstairs condo on purpose and knew full well all along that they weren't supposed to be there.
I broke into top condo on purpose, and I'm sorry.
What? Damn you, Con. This whole thing is your fault.
This leads to Hank shrugging him off and Con swimming to the shore, showing that the whole he can't swim thing was a lie and he just didn't want to get wet. They finally make it to the fence and Hank helps Dale scurry up. Then Con helps himself to Hank's help in order to scurry up the fence, but when the border patrol show up in the distance, Dale runs off, whereas Con stays back and helps Hank get over, showing that he and Hank are friends and that he does care about the hillbilly next door.
Welcome to land of opportunity, Hank.
They then run off into the West Texas desert, still hours away from home, but immediately after this we see that they somehow made it back. Granted, at this point they were fugitives of the Mexican government. They don't have any government ID or Nancy's car. How did they get that stuff back? I mean, there had to be consequences for illegally fleeing the country. It's not like the authorities don't know who they are or where they live. But whatever, they make it home and all is somehow right with the world. Con is back to his usual antics, poking fun at Hank for entering the country illegally and after Con. But he leaves us on a cheery note as he talks about the test that he had to take in order to legally become a citizen, referring to America as his country.
I had to memorize all presidents. You couldn't do it. That stretch between Polk and a Buchanan wipe you out. You ever hear of Garfield? He more than a cartoon cat, you know. He part of history of my country.
And the episode ends with a shot of La Bamba still resting atop a throne of noodles because for some reason no one had removed it yet. So, 3 days of the Kahndo. It's a funny episode. I recommend it to folks. It's got some good jokes. We get to see the hills in an unfamiliar environment. I kind of wish we'd have gotten more of Peggy trying to speak Spanish in Mexico though. Maybe a little more about what Min was up to. We see very little of her even though she was there the whole time. Dale taking it upon himself to join the hills is rather in character, and of course if you add more Dale it makes the episode better more often than not. Outside the obvious issue of them not calling anyone back home for help, plus the lack of any actual resolution, not even just a throwaway line at the end there about how they got out of the pickle that they were in. It's just left as, oh well, it's just a show, it'll reset next week, which is kind of crappy for a show that prided itself on being more realistic. Ultimately, most of the characters seemed to get what they wanted. Peggy got her pair, Luann got to bring some of the makeup back home, and Bobby got to attempt to make an explosive statement on foreign soil. It's also great to see Hank and Con spend time together, them bonding in the bar, then Con slowly admitting that Hank is a good friend and being the one to help Hank across the border after Dale scurried off like a roach when the light comes on. All of it was just an exercise in building the relationship between the two. Remember, we went from Con calling Hank the cracker neighbor at the beginning of the episode to calling him a good friend and literally offering a helping hand by the end. Don't get me wrong, Con can be a selfish jerk, but deep inside he's a good guy and sometimes he chooses to show it. But overall good episode, funny episode. We get male bonding, we get Dale antics, and if nothing else, we learn that Hank's biggest fear about Mexican prison is the lack of privacy.
Oh God, I can't go while people watch.
Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time.
Oh, Mickey, you're so fun, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Oh, Mickey, oh, so fun, I wanna believe. You take me by the heart and you take me by the hand.